sometimes game development, it doesn't always go like according to plan. And we asked you to anonymously submit your game dev confessions. I think this is a fun one. Where have things gone wrong? What are some opinions you have? All of that basically. And I want to share them with you. You don't know what they are, of course. So I just want to get your raw reaction and see like what pieces of advice do we have for the problems people are at.
So do we give them advice, and are we also like saying how
we're also
how big
laughing with them, basically.
Okay, but it's also like this is, we can say like this is like the intensity of the confession maybe.
I mean, sure.
All right, sure. We are prepared.
The first confession I have is my code dev is way better at programming than me. More experienced in general and in Unreal blueprints in specific. I want to contribute, but sometimes I feel like I'm just getting in the way.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. First, I thought it was you, William, that contributed to this, but then it was Unreal, so I knew maybe he added that in to like yeah. So also, I'm kidding. William is a great dev.
Yeah. But you are superior, right? Ooh, hot takes.
We both have our strengths.
Yeah, you both have your strengths. What would your piece of advice be here? Because
I would honestly just talk to the guy about it.
Okay, but
like just say how you feel. But talk about your feelings, bro.
What is that gonna help in this case? Like, what would be the desired end goal? Because
if he's so much better, then he can probably identify what the best learning areas are for him. Or
like determine like, hey, look, I understand that you're not as good at me in like
this
blueprints.
And this. Yeah.
How about you just focus on something else?
Yeah. Or like if I were you, I would just go to the guy and say like, hey, I have the feeling like you are doing this a lot better than me. Do you have some tips so where I can improve? Because I see your work and I think it's great. I want to learn from it.
Yeah, I think there is definitely a lot of where you feel like, oh, I don't deserve this. Especially if you work with multiple people. Like if you're a two-person team, you often say like, oh, we'll do the 50-50 split. Yeah. But then it may not feel good for you and not feel good for them, because it's also a two-way street at the end of the day. You see the code that the other person commits as well. Yeah. So like the other person may also be struggling with those feelings, and he may have also like gone to r/gamedev or something
maybe
to complain about like my code dev doesn't do enough and I feel like he should do more.
I would really love if there's a second information that's also talking about specifically the same thing.
Unfortunately not. So I think honestly just being upfront.
Yeah.
And people can generally be kind of forgiving, and it's, at least for us, I feel it's also about the effort put in.
Yeah, exactly. If someone sees you're trying, they will not ever like,
as long as you're not miserable, as long as you're not actively hampering development.
Yeah, and as long as you're trying.
So just talk to them. The next one I just find funny. We've talked about this before. This guy clearly hasn't watched enough Bite Me yet. I spent 2 years making my VR dream game till the VR is not good anymore, and I only got $280 and a heart attack from it. I don't know how the heart attack fully relates into this. I hope you didn't die. So
is it an actual heart attack, or is it like a fictional one? Like, I was so scared.
I don't know. Maybe he got so stressed or
if you got anxious. A real heart attack, sorry to hear that. I hope you're better. I hope you're not dead as well, because otherwise it's kind of stupid. We try to give you advice. But
yeah. On the other hand, we have talked multiple times of VR. It's like less than 2% of all Steam users have a VR thing. Then the VR is still a much more closed walled garden where you kind of have to get like inside of the meta inner circle.
Are you basically saying that the platform and the genre of your game matters?
Yeah.
What? Why has nobody told me about this?
The thing is, I understand you. VR, it's very cool. There was a point in my life when the Meta Quest 3 just came out where I was like, oh, this is cool. Maybe we could make a VR game as well. Yeah. And it's like the SDKs and things like that. It's not crazy hard.
I think it's mostly there for B2B or B2C, but not like games yet. Because
you think it's going to come?
In like 10 years, sure.
You think VR is like... I feel like...
Well, not necessarily VR, I mean like XR more like.
Yeah, maybe. But I feel like especially VR is on the downtrend. And I thought, like...
When's the last time you played your Quest?
I don't have a Quest. I have an...
oh yeah, so your VR headset.
Yeah. I only play Beat Saber though. The thing is, when is the last time I played a game? I think that's not an applicable question in my case.
A couple of days ago, live on stream, subscribe.
I mean, a game that was not... We talked about this before as well, like people have their core games of like a Beat Saber and things like that. I don't know someone who is like a big VR specific only gamer at the end of the day. You even see this with Half-Life Alyx. Supposedly the greatest possible game ever made. But you need to have a VR headset to buy it. And because of that, it will never reach that status of what Half-Life 2 had. Because it's just so not achievable. Like, yeah, you can play it without the Valve Index and still have an experience that's pretty good. But even then, the game, it's still good, but it never took off because they just did a market where only 2% of Steam users can play the game to begin with. Do more market research. It's what it all boils down to, and don't get heart attacks if you can. Let's go back to more happy vibes.
Is it sarcasm or not? Now I'm afraid.
It's more of, the funny boys joking around vibes. It's at least 10 times easier to get crowdfunding for an NSFW game than regular genres for indies. I don't know what he means. All hail the mosaics.
I 100% agree.
I don't think it's 10 times easier.
Okay, maybe not 10 times, but it's a lot easier. I think NSFW games are like one of the easiest way to get to make it as an indie.
Yeah, it's definitely like I have seen NSFW games flop as well. So it's not like
it's not a surefire hit, but you have better chances.
The shots, yeah, you're gonna hit a lot more most likely, and people just like more. Like you also see like NSFW game creators that are like giant Patreons and things like that. That is already harder. And I also don't know about Kickstarter entirely, but looking at NSFW games in general and like selling those on Steam, there are a lot of them that don't reach the 10 review mark, but there are also, I feel like, kind of a lot that do hit that. Now, one thing, of course, to keep in mind is it is the genre that has the most games come out every year, NSFW basically. So there's a lot of competition as well. What we like to say, at Bite Me at least, is that you shouldn't just make a game that is like just poops on the game and that's it. I think you should still look at, hey, let's make this an actual game.
You make a good game, and it just so happens to be that they are naked.
Yeah, that is, I think, what you should go for. Don't make the slop that is like AI generated porn games. Some of them will sell, but I wouldn't suggest doing that. Kickstarters, I don't know if Kickstarter is still the big meta for game dev, either NSFW or regular. I think there are other approaches. I think Patreon does stand out more because Kickstarter is also just a one-time thing. Patreon, you can get that recurring revenue, and that is a bit more stable as well. Not entirely wrong. There's just a lot of stigma. We are, I think, one of the only game devs that do even just talk about NSFW games, the fact that they exist. It's something that we try to be like, hey, it's game development at the end of the day. Don't be scared of it. I'm not going to think of you as a lesser human being. I know some people do view it as like, oh, you're not a real game dev because you make porn games. Fuck them. Don't worry about them. Just make the game you want to make. And
it's very NSFW of you.
Don't actually fuck them. But if that's the game you want to make, don't let the fact that it's NSFW stop you. If anything, it can help. That's kind of also how Helltaker was made. It's still SFW, but it's like, I wanted to make this game with cute demon girls, so let's just make it. This is we sometimes have some very weird viewers. I've cycled through over 100 contractors because I'm impossible to work with. My game is 2.5 years in and I'm still in pre-production and my vertical slice isn't done. I spent over 15K on my game thus far.
Honestly, I respect you. You seem like a horrible person to work with, but at least you know so.
He says it as well.
Like if you at least can admit that, I think more power to you.
But the problem is it doesn't help that you can admit it.
The next step is you admit it, change it.
Yeah, what would 15K to 100 contractors? Jesus Christ.
That's a lot, huh?
That's a lot of people. I feel like the reason you haven't made a game yet is because you're just stuck in sending emails to everyone. I mean, like, hey, can you get this deliverable? These are the requirements. Because contractors, they take a lot of upfront investment as well. Like a contractor, ideally, you want to find one that you can go in for a longer time as well. So you don't have to start from scratch, because when we work with people on like Fiverr and whatever, the hardest part is just getting that initial alignment already of the project you want to work with.
That's why a lot of artists over there like give you like intermediate, like not the finished product, but like show you like, hey, I'm working on this. Is this what your vision is?
Definitely. But even then, like I sent like giant briefs basically before we start. But of course, you have, I feel like you might maybe are a bit neurodivergent or something. You have a very specific requirement. That is okay. The problem then is, if it's this much, maybe it's time to also look at a different style of game. If you want to make your dream game, and because you've sunk 15K into this already, which is more than most game devs realistically will ever do if you don't account for time. What are you trying to make? And
how is it that unique that people... Or like, what is your quality expectation?
We definitely have worked with people on Fiverr that have done great work, and we've also done with them that like always went over time, had mediocre results at best that just weren't good. But I feel like if your sample size is over 100 people, you should have found someone, I think, realistically. If there's no one in that 100-person pool, I think there's no one for you. We always say there's plenty of fish in the ocean, but sometimes you're just not even in the same ocean. So I think reconsider the game, reconsider the standards, reconsider the scope.
Yeah, whatever it is that is usually the deal breaker, work on that. Yeah. If it is because you have way too high of a standard, or your budget is too low for what you expect, or whatever, reconsider that. Yeah. If it's just the game ID, reconsider that. Whatever it is that is the deal breaker, that's the thing.
And since you already spent 15K, there's a link down below as well where you can just book a call with me if you want to go and talk things through.
Yeah, you can spar about it.
What is another 59 euros at the end of the day, right? Now we get to kind of a similar problem, but I think more of a, like the 15,000 that's not that relatable. This one is, I've never prototyped or made a game design document in 2 years I've been doing game development, ... The thing I don't know from this statement is, does he mean like, oh, but I still make games so it's not useful? Or does he mean like,
yeah,
my games suck because I'm too lazy? Yeah.
Because if you're like, I work on for 2 years on only prototypes, it's like, whatever. Yeah. If you released multiple games and they didn't do well, maybe a game design document can help you align your vision early on.
The thing is, game design documents, yeah, you should kind of have them. You don't need the big ass books, but you should write down your idea at least, just so you don't forget it. Like,
yeah, or not diverge from it.
Humans are dumb at the end of the day. Yeah. You will often forget your great idea just by sleeping a night, and then it's like, what was I gonna do again? Always write down things at least. Write down ideas for your game, write down like certain mechanic ideas or balance ideas. They'll come throughout the day, and like you put them on your phone, they put them somewhere. You don't need a full like 10-page game design document. You need somewhere, I feel, to store information. As for the prototyping, what do you do there?
I mean, if it's just prototyping, learn to finish the game. But to continue on your point,
do you think you need to prototype? Because the thing is, we say, oh, you should prototype. But that's like an ideal world. I understand that not every person who watches Byte Me is like a 100% step-by-step copy what they're doing. Like certain things we talk about, you can like kind of skip maybe, or like you're like, I'll do that later. Do you think that's the things with prototyping? Because we also have had limited prototyping.
Yeah, we like, depending on the game, it's like limited or no prototyping.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily bad, but that means you have to have thought about your game in advance, and then you need a GDD at least.
I think prototyping is good if you have no idea what you're doing. But if you've been doing it for over 2 years at this point, you kind of get the Fingerspitzengefühl, where like you understand a bit more, okay, this is a decent idea, I would implement it like this. If you're brand new and it's like first big games you're working on, then you should definitely prototype, because that is the point you need it. If you've been doing it for over 2 years, I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Yeah.
You want to go for a spicy one?
Sure.
This is a very long one, but I think also an extremely spicy one. I say this as both a programmer and an artist. Programmers are third-class citizens in the game development world. It's true. You struggle to even get a crumb of attention, while artists can just not make a game and get attention from fan art they draw on the latest fad topic. I'm sorry to you who came from a rich history of software development and who wants to escape the office grind to make something of your own. Learn art or beg on the streets for art like millions of other prospective game devs like you. Pixel art is a coping mechanism. Low poly is a coping mechanism. AI is a coping mechanism. Going retro will not save you from your lack of art skills. All the retro games you know and love were made by teams of people with more art skills and resources that you have now. A good programmer will ask to collab and be lucky to get any bites. A good artist will ask to collab, and if they show a portfolio, people will be all over them. A programmer will ask to do it for free, an artist might ask for money, the programmers will whine. The art feels harder than the coding because code just works and it works. Art is never truly finished, and you have to draw so much for most games, it's such a burden. It goes on a bit longer, but it gets a bit more rambly. This is, basically it comes down to, there is definitely a power imbalance between programmers and artists, the two main camps. Like, yeah, you have audio people and whatever, but you can't usually in indie world be only an audio guy or things like that. You either are a programmer as your main thing or an artist as your main thing.
Yeah, the thing is, he's not completely wrong.
He's right.
Yeah.
Maybe
to a certain degree.
Definitely, I think the easiest way to describe this is game dev is like a dating pool. The programmers are the guys, the artists are the girls. And I don't mean that as like, oh, every artist is a girl. I mean that in the interest pool.
Yeah, like in Tinder, there's like 3 males for every 1 female.
Yeah,
that's what he means. Like 3
that.
programmers for every 1 artist.
And because of that, like there's an imbalance of, like he said, there is indeed. If you're an artist, you can find 5 programmer slaves for you if you really wanted to, and you just joined like a few Discord servers, including ours. If you have good art, programmers are like, please help me, I want to make the game for you, I don't mind my queen. That is definitely true. I'm not fully certain about the coping mechanism. I think pixel art and low poly being coping mechanisms, I think especially low poly, one thing people often forget is like, oh, you're good at programming and bad at art. But there's a big part of art that is actually still programming, the technical art, making your own shaders and all of that. You can still learn that as a programmer, and I think if you combine that with low poly, you definitely can have some potential. Also, another one that he didn't say is a coping mechanism, but I think according to his idea would be, is what we did with Unicycle Pizza Time, like the high poly PBR style.
Oh.
That's also like, we had no artists on that project. We had no art direction on that project. We just decided this is the thing that we can work with and make look decent.
What do you think about the AI coping mechanism?
Ooh,
it's a juicy one, right?
We can watch our previous video about that. Let's not dive in too deep about that one.
Well, we at least have now a way for you to click the button over there.
Yeah, AI definitely. The thing is, no, I'll cover it very quickly. AI doesn't matter if you don't understand art to begin with. It's not gonna save you, because then you get shit games regardless, shit looking games. What do you do though, if you are a programmer and you have been trying to find, you've been swiping
make
for
a
artists,
SaaS application,
and then just get money to buy an artist?
Yeah. No, I'm not kidding, by the way. I think that's actually like one of the best things to do.
You think it's...
Just get a normal programming job. You probably earn enough to hire an artist.
Become like that guy who spent 15K.
Yeah, that's no joke, by the way.
I think
it's really hard.
If you are a programmer, I think you have to understand that you offer little value, so to say. There's a lot of other programmers, and unless you can point at like, I have made all of these games, because we see it in our Discord as well, of like, I can program, I'm looking for someone to work with, but it's like, oh, it's their first game as well. You become very unattractive then for someone to work with. If you have like an actual portfolio as a programmer as well, I think your chances increase, because once again, you're proving that I can actually work longer term on something.
Yeah,
and I can make a game.
I can make a proper multiplayer game,
This is the quality of game I can make. That would help a lot. If you're a programmer getting started, I would not look for accountability buddies. That is my go-to. Don't do it fully alone. But for art, I wouldn't expect to find an artist to work with.
I also think that it's easier to be a shit programmer than to be a shit artist. What I mean with that is a shit programmer can still do something, while a shit artist will probably not get anywhere.
Have you looked at the games being released on Steam?
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit art on those as well.
Yeah, but my point is, you can hide being, a good game can still have a shit programmer. A good game is way less odds of having a shit artist.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Okay.
So basically, even more, you're not important.
I'm sorry, programmers. Guys, if you're a programmer, please share some hopium in the comments down below, because we clearly don't have it.
Yeah.
And then the final one, and I can sense the anger of the people, of the person writing it. It's like, people say, he's talking about me, people say ideas are worthless. But I've also recently played 4 nearly identical grocery store simulator games, all on Steam, that I believe came out within a year of each other. I can't tell how to judge if my game idea is good enough to get copied, so I just keep it quiet rather than get validation on an initial concept.
Alright, how do I say this nicely? I think you have to be a specific kind of person, to be the person in the world that thinks of themselves as, my idea is so unique that I'm the only one who's able to think about it, and no one has ever tried it before.
I think also...
That's the cleanest way I can say it.
Okay, I'm not fully sure what you mean though. What does this mean? Why are there 4 similar grocery store simulator games in this case, for example?
Why? Because people just copy it. They don't have good ideas. And ideas in itself are worthless because the execution matters.
Yeah.
One of the 4 will be the best.
Yeah.
That's how it is. They will have the most sales.
And I think one other thing is, like, you say grocery store simulators, usually there is some difference still.
Yeah, the trading card one.
The trading card one is popping off right now, but even you had Supermarket Simulator was the first like big one. And then there became a co-op version of it that was multiplayer. And yeah, sure, you do the same thing, but it has that hook of like...
multiplayer.
You like this game? Well, now you can enjoy it with your friends. And then it's like, oh, now you are doing like a drop shipping company, or you're doing like a different kind of business, and there's like a car salesman. There's so many different simulators at the end of the day. And yeah, the simulator genre, it's not always the most unique, so to say, but still that niche that you choose is often like power washing simulator.
And then the blood one, for example, it's like the
crime
same
scene
but different.
Yeah. It's not crazy ideas. I think also one thing there is it's mainly done by like the Playway style publishers. We talked about this before as well, where they don't look at what do we like, They look at what does the Steam user like. And that is a very different shift that people have who watch Bite Me usually versus the Playway publishers and things like that. You want to make the game that you want to make. But with those supermarket simulators, it's a mix of, hey, I don't mind making this game if I was the developer, but is it my dream game? Definitely not, but I understand that it's the game that a lot of people will play and it's kind of my dream to make money. That's the idea that the developers of those games have as well. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Yeah. I think you're making a mistake by completely keeping your ideas silent.
What you need in your life is a friend who plays thousands and thousands of games. You will pitch your idea to them and they will say, oh, so like this, and this game. And you'll be like, wait, what?
All these games exist. Yeah, I've learned of a lot of games as well from like this YouTube channel and like learning indie games, and there's like very obscure ones, very weird ones. You don't need to be a completely unique game.
No.
You need to be better than the competition in at least one aspect, and that is enough. Don't make a game that is like similar to everything else, but that is worse as a grocery store simulator or whatever. Yeah. Make it stand out in at least one thing, and that's fine.
If I make Beat Saber and it's worse in every way, I won't sell anything. If I made Beat Saber and I have a unique twist, one thing I'm just better at. For example, better songs or a unique twist to it. That's what makes me unique, and people will probably buy my game.
Yeah, just make sure you're at least better than your competition in at least one thing. Yep. And those were some of the confessions we had. Of course, you can leave them in the comments down below if you have anything else or some more thoughts where you're like, Marnix, Thomas, you're so wrong. Maybe you're gonna make your next NSFW game, who knows? Apart from that, thank you very much for watching. We make 2 videos every week here on this channel talking about game dev and the things that we learn. So if that's something that you're interested in, head down below and subscribe, as it really just helps us out. The number goes up and I get happier. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye.